Hold on, I need to press OK. Yeah, cool.
Great. Okay. Hi, Victor here from June. Thanks for joining us for another Invicta interview. How are you doing today, Victor?
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much for having me.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So what have you guys been up to in the band?
We've been it's been all system go since yeah, really basically we've been writing this new album Voidkind for a good year and a half, I'd say year and a half / 2 years, and we started recording it. We started demos around like we started demoing like last summer. The recording process started in September. We recorded the album into this little house outside Edinburgh. Kind of did it like the old American way, you know, when you hear these stories of like people going into this house and then they end up producing an album there. So it's kind of what we did. We had this really awesome place that Dudley, our drummer, his family used to have in their family. Not anymore, so but it was still cool. He had like a lot of history, and it's like an old building, and it meant something to Dudley, our drummer. So that was a cool spot, special place to record this album. And then after that, we just had a break to finish writing the lyrics and the synths and the vocals. And then we end up attacking that at our producer house on the other side of Edinburgh. And the album was really finished when the mixing was done, which was in November. And then we got the master done and sent to our label in December. So since then, we had a really short break for Christmas, got ready for touring, and then, got ready as well for like, making sure we had all the things we needed, like the vinyls ready, working on the promo, making sure we've got merch as well for tours and for our website. So yeah, it's been full on, but in a good way.
All right. Yes, that sounds pretty full on.
Yes.
So do you write everything, or do you do that as a band collaboratively? Then you mentioned you did the lyrics and the synths and things. So how's the process for you guys?
The process is I would kind of divide it into groups, like two important moments. One is the foundation of the music and the foundation of the album, which is mostly done through it was done with Alan, the DVNE. Alan is our bassist, but he also played guitar on this album. And really, we had this kind of a trio that was really like just jamming a lot together, coming back home, working up on some ideas. Sometimes Alan certainly had a couple of songs that were a bit more towards a fully fledged version of a song. Then he brings that at practice. We kind of, see if there is something we want to add on it, extend. Do we want to add an extra riff in it? This kind of thing. And then but most of the songs were written as in the practice place, We've been playing music together for quite a while. Although Alan wasn't on the last album, he was with us on the album before that. So we always had more or less since the beginning this kind of trio thing with different members. So before that, on the album before, it was Jack Kavanagh. On this one, it was Alan, Dudley, and me, and so that took the best part of a year and a half of refining things and elaborating on some ideas we might have start jamming together. So we got to a point where the songs were like, okay, here's a demo of something that feels close to what we actually want to track in the studio. So we arrived around April, May, June kind of time before we start doing like, some summer festivals for last year. We arrived with like 14 songs. And out of these 14 songs, then we start really refining and doing what you would call arrangement. So you start thinking about, okay, what do we want to keep on the album? Maybe slightly start thinking about the order of the songs. What is good, what is not good. And the other members start getting more involved at that time as well, saying stuff like, hey, I really enjoyed that. This, maybe you could try that. This, maybe you could try that. And that leads us to the recording, really, because I like being involved on the vocals and the synths. Also, Dan and Max are also very much involved on that at that stage. But I don't really have the headspace at that time because we're so focused with like the rest of the band on making sure we've got the right foundation. I always think that the foundation is a harder part. It's not completely true, but it's definitely it's so important. If you've got bad foundations, you're not gonna have a really good album, and your songs are not gonna be very good. So you've got to make sure this is like as good as it gets. So our producer helped as well a little bit with that. Sometimes there were some songs, some takes where we're like, right, we're probably gonna play this for this length of time, or maybe we've got a transition. Sometimes you'll be listening to us as we were tracking these things and saying, maybe you could actually get this a bit shorter. Maybe you could do transition instead of going with this bridge. Maybe you don't need a bridge. Maybe you can do this way, you know. So there's a lot of that and a lot of writing that is, I'd say the music is like 80, like foundations are 80% to 70% there. We have all the material, but then when we start tracking, a lot of the choices and the final choices happen then and there. Because it depends on the energy, on how you capture things, on how the drums are feeling, and all these kind of things. So there's a lot of that happens at that time. So yeah, certainly a collaborative approach, as you can tell. And then there's the second phase, really, which is we took this kind of months, 5 weeks off, 5, 6 weeks off, and it's not of just time to like really here's the music. What do we want to do with vocals? How do we finalize lyrics? What each of these songs are going to be talking about? Because we already have a concept that's been done before that. And then the synths as well, of course. So even some lead guitar, from time to time, we might have some leads we didn't do, and we start thinking about them after. We might do those finishing touches, you know. It's really like the polishing and like all the little nice thing that would be more like lead work, I would say. So all of that, we did that with Max, Dan, and Graham and me, Graham being our producer. But still, Alan and Dudley would be very much involved. They might come, leave us a bit of space to try to do these things, and then they come being like, I like that, I'm not quite sure about this, give us some ideas. There was certainly some moments on vocals where we were maybe a bit stuck, and having your partners, you know, your guys there with you, and just being like, try that. I've got a good example. There's a track called Rolly Quarry on this album, and the vocals on it are at first, personally, Dan and I weren't, both of us weren't very inspired in terms of like what we wanted to do with it. And Dudley just went, hey, why don't you try something that's a bit more like a bit more punchy and a bit more rhythmical, which ended up being the beginning, the back and forth between Dan and I. And I find that really interesting because he brought his more you know, rhythmical knowledge, you know, things that is strong point, and then we can, all right, well, we can do that. All right, yeah, cool. And then you start having an idea. So I always think that I hate writing music here on my own. You know, I'm just gonna write riffs, and I don't want to do something fully fledged because you question yourself so much, and also it's one idea. But I feel like we're much better just being in the room together and kind of just jamming and say, hey, I've got this stuff, and someone, you start playing it, your drummer start playing something, and then you like, oh, actually he's taking this in a totally different ways, and you're gonna adjust slightly your riff sometime, and it changed the song completely, you know. So yeah, it's the same for vocals, it's the same for synths. Max being there, it's the first time I had someone to like, well, it's the first time we had a duo writing synths together, you know. So here we had this idea where you can go try that, and then we can kind of pre-produce and write those synths rather than doing them on the fly like we did on the last album. And same story here, our producer is also involved. He maybe give us some ideas, maybe say, I'm not quite sure about that, try this, and etc. etc. So it's like this constant refinement, a bit of a grind sometimes, but this constant work in progress, this constant it feels like it's like I think it's why the song sometimes feels so pardon the term, but organic, you know, like so kind of like you're not necessarily sure how they start and how they materialize. And I can tell you, for us it's also the same kind of question. Sometimes we're a bit like, how on earth did we do this? It's like how did it started and how did it became how this song becomes what the song is is at the end. It's just because it's been going through so many different variations, and it evolves, and there is so much so much a bit of committee, but in a good way, you know, just so many things that filters the bad and keeps the thing that keeps everyone excited, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of things that you mentioned there that I want to come back to. But I just wanted to say that I really like the new album.
Thank you.
Foremost, it's to me, maybe you can speak to this. It feels a lot more, I don't want to say stripped back, but perhaps more direct and aggressive, even maybe, and focused than the previous record. So I wanted to know your thoughts on it. Was that a conscious decision to do that? Was that just, as you say, something that happened organically? Because I think it does feel like a really organic sort of album, especially, you know, you've got a lot of maybe progressive influences in there. So from prog rock and prog metal, but it taps into the more post-metal side of things sometimes as well, which feels quite raw and primal. So was it an organic process, or was it something where you went, okay, we have to do something different on this album? Could you on
Yeah,
that?
but both, I think they're both organic process in a way, because it's more these decisions. We had like this stuff in mind that we were really like, hey, Heteman was cool. We really enjoy this album. How do we make something that stands at least at the same level, like equally good but new, something that would bring something fresh on the table. And because we play Heteman so much live, and we prep for it live, and you know, it's a real work and to prep an album for live. And the work that goes into that kind of helped us, and us playing those songs live, seeing how people feel, and especially how we feel on stage playing this stuff. It kind of takes you to a place where you're like, you start having a wish list of things you don't like too much, and stuff you want to do more of, and stuff you want to expand on. And the main thing we realized, well, we are very terrible at writing. We were anyway very terrible at writing shorter track. We just like, you know, you can hear the way I speak as well. I cannot stop speaking, and it's the same for a drummer. It's the same for a lot of guys in the band. So we are maybe a bit too how would you say that? A bit indulgent in the way we play music sometimes, and sometimes we just like, it's really hard for us to sometimes to make a song that's not 8 minutes. You know, it feels like,
Right.
for us, it feels like we're at home. We can start with a nice introduction, and you know, develop, and then develop more, and build and build and build and stuff. Which is cool, and we still did that with this album. But we also wanted to try something else, which is, hey, can we make more distilled, concise
Right.
Dune songs, while retaining our identity, and while still taking people on this stuff we really like doing, which is you know, being able to tell a story, taking people a bit on a trip with some of these songs. And we did it. I think something we're quite proud of, because there's quite a few of these songs on this album, and for us it's like completely different. It brings a new flavor to this album. But that also applies to you mentioned feeling like this album is a bit more raw, a bit more direct. Yeah, the shorter song do that, but we could have had the exact same production, and you would have maybe not get as much. You wouldn't have as much as a distinct identity on Voidkind if we didn't change the way we produce the album. And one thing we really wanted to do was, first, Dudley wasn't as pleased as he could have been with his drums on Etemen in terms of how they sounded. And we realized that we were layering a bit too much on Etemen. On Etemen, we were like layering quite a lot of guitars, maybe because we weren't so confident with our playing you know, capacities. And because of that, from time to time you end up being like, oh, one guitar is fine, but maybe I'm gonna add another one. Sometimes he hides a mistake a little, you know, but because of it, he makes everything kind of more like a block, and he takes away from some of the dynamic. So our producer really was able to give us that kind of feedback, also saying, right, if the more you put, the less the individualism of each instrument is going to shine, you know. So it's going to be quite, here's a thing, rather than, hey, here's Dudley, and you can really hear the drums being like, you know, really three-dimensional. And same with the guitar. I mentioned in the press release this left and right guitar. It's very much the case because that's what's going to happen live, and also because it's what's going to happen live. If you do it in the studio, you're going to be able to hear more subtleties within each of the instruments. Same will happen will apply to bass. The same will apply to synths. Although synth is a little less performed instrument because you're on keys and stuff like that. But there is movement within that. There is like all the filters and like the nice effect that you might hear on some of this. And then maybe the last thing, but not least, because it's the first time people will hear the vocals. Because you've got more space for the vocals, we are able to really, really embrace them and really like focus on them. They're a little bit less of an afterthought, And I think because of that, we were able to really embrace things like accents. For example, on this album, we didn't really want to blur the accent or make them a bit less like a little bit less subtle. And here we were like, fuck it, as long as people can understand what we are talking about, we're gonna embrace this accent. Dan's got this fantastic lead Yorkshire accent, and you hear it when he does heavy vocals. It's like there's something very heavy in the way he pronounces stuff and some of the words. And I've got my own accent, obviously, like you can hear it here. And I think sometimes on some part it's lovely. Sometimes I pronounce some A's and stuff like that in a different ways, and he gives more identity to the music. So yeah, we really wanted to embrace this individuality and this dynamics within the music,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's very interesting. So you're talking about the lyrics there and what you wanted to say, and I think that's a good point to maybe ask you if you could expand a little bit on. First of all, is there a concept with this album like there was with Etemin? And also, if you could explore a little bit. I know that you talk about kind of sci-fi narratives in the lyrics and things like that. Is that something you've done on this album as well? And what were your influences with that? And what's the story or the message of the lyrics on this album?
Yeah, well, there is a theme. Each album we've made have a specific theme. On this album, we really wanted to focus on. We want to talk about religion and many things around religion. Really, it's not so much of a gray, black and white thing. It's more of a gray thing where within religion you've got some really interesting things that comes out of it, but there is also a darker side of it, which we talk a lot about in this album. So within religion, we wanted to talk about many things that we find super interesting with religion and just human history in general, and its relation to religion, which is just absolutely everywhere at every steps of our evolution, really. And here we talk about it from the start, really. Not that the album story is in chronological order. Actually, we took the approach of telling different stories, and then when you put all these stories together, you have a theme.
Okay, cool.
But the vibe here, well, we wanted to talk about the birth of a religion. It's the way it's spread through martyrdom, through pilgrimage, through many different elements that you find in human history and religion in general. And then other things like this concept of fanaticism and the concept of heretics, zealots and all these kind of things. And obviously the darker side of religion, which is, the massive intolerance, the dogma, the rigid dogma that get created around something that's absolutely unsure of based on faith, and how quite often the oppressor becomes the oppressed becomes the oppressor. You see that all the time, in recent actuality and news. And anyway, here that's kind of what the story we wanted to talk about. And then on the back of that, on a topic that is very dark and serious, we build on something that's a bit more indulgent and a bit more, like something that's kind of something we enjoy doing, which is like I love sci-fi and I like fantasy because I like escapism. I like this idea of being in another world and using my imagination to you know, here for us to create another space. And when I'm a listener or like a reader or a viewer, being able to escape into someone's fantastic world, it's absolutely amazing. You know, whether this world is extremely violent, which is the case in Voidkind, or maybe a world that's a little bit more peaceful. You know, but here the things turns pretty dark for absolutely everybody. But I'll let people enjoy that the escapism part of it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So you said that this is sort of set in the same universe as Etemin, like lyrically and narratively.
Yeah, like
Span as well, maybe.
yeah, totally. Like I know some of the guys have said different things, but for me, and I think for I don't know what Dan would say about that. We write the concept all together, really, but Dan and I were writing the lyrics together. To me, it's the same universe as it's our universe. It's the little world we created. We had Asheron and Etemenenka are very much the same planet. It's just people at the end of at the end of Etemen, some people leave and they go to another world, right? Another place.
Yeah.
Well, and then they come back to the planet on Asheron. So there was this kind of idea here. Here it can be anything. It can be during, it can be middle, it can be whatever. We didn't really put like a um, some kind of limit or timeline to things. Actually, the timeline could be in the middle of the two stories and a long time after, because the way the album story kind of finishes is also a beginning, if that makes sense. So there is a concept of some kind of hive weird entity that's kind of coming into our universe and that consumes things and just takes over completely, like a full universe, a full dimension. And its end, it's also its beginning, because and it's, you know, its expansion, it's also the beginning of this hive mind. Because yeah, I don't want to spoil it. I think it's cool if people kind of just dive into the lyrics and stuff like that, but there is this element of it. So I know Dan and I have this little fantasy that one day we'll work with like a cool artist and we'll do like a full-on, you know, illustration of something, like a full-on, you know, like maybe like a comic book or like an illustrated novel or something like that. I would very much like to do that.
Yeah, that would be it'd be wicked. I could see how that
Yeah,
would.
yeah.
I mean, I think it's fair to say a lot of people think of you guys as quite a visual band. I mean, the merch that I've seen, whether that's at festivals or just on your promos, it always is quite eye-catching and striking, and you know, the designs for the album artwork as well. You've clearly put a lot of thought into the visual aesthetic of the band. So I think, yeah, that sounds like that could be really cool, to have like an extra element, sort of a different form of media. With that, who designed the artwork for this album, and was it someone that you'd worked with before?
No, it's the first time we were working with him. His name is Felix Abelclair. He's amazing. I've been like I knew of him because of Instagram, and I also knew, like, we've been working with amazing people in the past. So before that, we worked with Marald, who has done so much amazing artwork, including our last album. But he works regularly with like Baroness.
Oh yeah.
He didn't do the covers of Baroness, but he does some stuff for Baroness. And he did like he does so many people. Like right now, I just saw a cover art he did for a band called Nikrot or Nukrot, and the cover is amazing, man. Super good. But the thing is, like, what we wanted to do, again, as I mentioned before, we wanted the album to stand differently. Than we didn't want people to feel like it was a DLC, you know, like an expansion pack of ATM, and we really wanted it to feel like has a different flavor and a different vibe to it. And I'm sure Mal would have been able to do that, huh? But we wanted to go with someone that first we didn't work with in the past, that we really like, and will just bring a different vibe. And the best yeah, Felix nailed it as well. I love this cover art. I think it's amazing. But on top of that, what's amazing with what Felix did with us is he's not a metalhead, and he doesn't do cover for albums. It's the first time he's doing a cover art for a band, and certainly for a metal band. So it's a good thing. It's a good way for us bring something that feels different, and at the same time stand out, you know, just feel like, hey, we did this. This looks amazing. I guarantee you that he's gonna get a lot of emails on the back of that.
Oh,
I'd be surprised if he doesn't, because I just think it's very original and very very interesting what he does.
yeah, absolutely. I think you've put it quite nicely there that you needed to maybe do something different on this album. Obviously, on that note, Etamin Enka, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, was obviously hugely successful for you. And I know you had some delays with regard to COVID, and I believe you recorded it and then couldn't tour it, and there was some holdups and things. When we finally heard those songs live last year, so I saw your set at Arctangent. It was one of the highlights of the weekend for me.
Which Arctangent did you go to?
Arctangent, so last summer,
2023?
23, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It
so
was a good one.
great to finally hear those songs live after so long. But yeah, obviously it was hugely successful for you. So there's a couple of questions here. I guess, how's that process been for you you know, I think it's fair to say it was perhaps more successful than the previous releases. And also, like, on following up from that, you mentioned with the artwork and with the songs, you wanted to do something quite different to maybe separate those two albums rather than just phone in a sequel. Yeah, so how was the process of creating something that was different, and also how did you guys take the success that album had?
Totally took that way too far. No, we're cool about it. To be honest, like it's funny when people say that to us, because it for us. It's not like you know, we're not making a living out of this. Most of the money we've made, we've reinvested it in the band in some shape or form. You know, like you mentioned live. We've toured with a lot of bands during the last few like during the Etemen Enka cycle. The first stuff we did when we had money was to reinvest into like make sure we got like a good gear for stage, like things like a mixing desk or like a stage box, so, and some mics, so we can go at shows and we can start pre-producing our music and go, and every night you're like, all right, you're not starting from zero, and you can offer a better live experience for people coming to see you, you know. So there is this element. And then there obviously, like we spend quite a lot of money making this album, you know. It's we are quite ambitious with what we want, and also we had because we wanted to do this into this not a place that is not a recording studio, and we were renting a house. It obviously costs money, time away from work, and all these kind of things. So there is this element. So usually successful in a way that I wouldn't say usually successful. I would say successful in a way that we have been able to up our game with production and live production. Which you should be doing at a stage of you know, of a band like us. I think it's important to sometimes know that you know, I've got people still asking us quite often, hey, can I get free passes for me and my family to come to your show? And you're like, no, you're not, because I'm still not making money out of this. Nobody's making money. We're trying here to more, like we are still at this stage where, a very important stage where people start seeing us as a serious band, you know, and we start getting very decent offer from festivals, so we can now get into positions where we are making money, we can pay our crew because we've got people who goes on tour with us, and also the promoters who are working with us are not losing money, and everyone is happy really. And so this is where we are at now. So on that side of things, yes, it has been very successful last 3-4 years. So with this album, when we came with, like, we know, with the idea of making this record, and with what we wanted to do differently, you're taking a risk regardless of what you're doing, because obviously you've got these new fans and stuff. But I don't think our scene really enjoys bands who are releasing the same record twice, you know.
Sure.
I mean, some bands manage to do it. AC/DC and stuff like that, they basically released, you know, there are some bands who can totally get away with this.
Yeah.
You're doing post-prog metal or stuff like that. No, nobody's really like this. People are like quite educated, and they're quite with this music, you know, they've got a trained ear to this kind of thing, and they want novelty, and they want new things. So you've got this extra challenge that happens. So it was a challenge for sure, but it came in naturally because we kind of identified what we wanted to do, and we had ideas, and also I think the fact that we had Alan on this album instead of Jack as well means we are saying it is quite a good thing. We have someone else to inject kind of a bit of some fresh ideas and a bit of a fresh new blood in the band. So it really helps, you know, in like allowing us to come up with new ideas and this kind of thing. So yeah, I think I went kind of like maybe a little bit out of topic here. That your question was about that, right?
I think you answered both of the questions, which was yeah, how was the success of Etamin, and
Yeah.
also how did you go about following that up on Voidkind? I think you covered it.
Yeah, about yes.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear you talk about the inspiration behind the two different albums, and obviously a lot of time has passed between those as well, mostly because of COVID. I imagine that halted some of your plans. So what have you guys got planned for this year? You're on tour with Conjurer this spring, is that right? Are you doing any festivals as well, or is it just tour the album first and foremost?
Yeah, we've got a first UK headlining tour with a band called Slimo. Lovely stuff. So we are going with them on tour for 6 days in April, just in like 10 days, something like that. And then after that, it's a co-headlining tour with Conjurer in Europe with a few festivals. There's Dunk Festival and another couple of festivals. Like not big ones on this one, but like a nice, you know, those boutique kind of festival, which are always a lot of fun. And then we've got, yeah, then we are back here to do a headlining show in Edinburgh, then Desert Fest London. And then we are going on tour with a band called My Diligence in France, Germany, Switzerland, Netherlands, but absolutely everywhere. Well, it's going to be like quite a long one. So we've got 33 shows between now and June, and we finish this run of shows with a big festival in Denmark, Copenhagen.
Oh yeah.
So that's gonna be cool. Then a few festivals over the summer. We've got a chill July, and then a few festivals in August. And we're probably gonna have a tour as well in October. So yeah, it's gonna be busy. It's gonna be really busy.
Oh, it sounds like it. Yeah, 33
Mm.
shows between now and June, you say?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, that's good.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's good to be busy with, you've been working hard for the last few years now. I suppose you're glad that shows are back as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, I think also we are going on this tour with a bit of a different kind of mindset than we had in the past. We were a bit younger on the last few tours, and now it's a bit more. It's less uncertain than the things used to be. You know, like the first tour we did on Entertainment was in September 2021. So it was like just when they eased the lockdown in some countries. So we were like, didn't know if we were going on tour about 2 weeks before we were going on tour. And I remember we were going on tour with a French band, and the French band were like, Deluge, they weren't quite sure. They were like, ah, this is going to be a disaster. Nobody's going to come because of that and that. And we were just like, fuck it. We should do it. We are young and we didn't have much to risk. The worst case scenario, well, we're going to lose 3 grand, which in the grand scheme of things is not the end of the world. So we did that tour, and it was such a success because there was nobody playing and everyone really wanted to see some music. So that was awesome. And then we also saw the other side of lockdown of the touring when you know things kind of were like all over the shop. It kept on changing every week. We did a tour where in December in with Bosk in the UK, and I think on the like mid tour they announced that they were going to put back some restriction. So we're like, oh shit, what we're gonna do? And we finished the tour, but like most of the shows were sold out for that tour, and quite often we would arrive at venues that were half full because half of the people there were like, I'm not going there. This is definitely not a good place to be for that, and I'm going to see my family next week, kind of thing. So we had that. And then we were on tour when absolutely like everybody was on tour in Europe. And that was weird because the tour were like selling okay, but they were selling on the day, you know, so you'd be going to shows because like nothing was selling out. Like we toured with Iron Fire at that time, and I think they sold out one show, you know. And it was like kind of an interesting thing. It's just because on the same night you'll be having like so many different gigs, and per week you would be having so many gigs. So a very uncertain time that the last 2 3 years. I think things are a bit better now. And also we are in a better place now because the group is a bit bigger. So it means we've got we've got better fees. It's a headlining tour as well, so it's a bit more comfortable for us, and we can take things a bit more, like a bit more seriously. We can budget things a bit better, and yeah, and have a bit more of less rock and roll tour. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, it's totally fair enough.
Mm.
So I wanted to ask a bit about the kind of the geography of the band. I noticed you have a French accent, is that right?
Oh yes, it took you that long to get it
Well,
right.
I've heard that some of the band are from France, but I've seen you described as a band from Edinburgh as well. So are you all quite spread out? Are you like based in Scotland, or what's that kind of how's that process when it comes to collaborating and getting together and rehearsing as well?
Yeah, so we are a Scottish band. Also, we have ties in other countries too. Scotland has been where we started, and it's Dudley and our bassist Alan are both from Scotland. But and all the band except for our synth player lives here. So we live in Edinburgh, and our bassist lives he lives in Alva near Glasgow. And so we have our studio here. We've been doing most of our recording here, and most of our story really, yeah, everything that's happening in the band, like music videos, everything happens from here. So it's for me, who's from France. It's my home. It's my second home, really. Well, it's my first home now. I've got a house here and stuff like that. So it's really our place. But our synth player is in France, and we also have other people who have been helping us out a lot over the last few years, including our bass player, a second bass player called Alex. He's from Greece. 2 6, man, 2 6.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And so the thing is, Alex is from Greece. He jumps on tour quite a lot, but he lives also in Edinburgh. But he also helps on other things. He helps with he helped a lot on the last music video. He's got a very keen eye on art as well. You mentioned that we take a lot of time thinking about artworks and stuff like that, and merch. Certainly something he's been helping a lot with, and then we also have we have a synth player that comes in when Max wasn't available in the past, and if Max is not available, we'll probably give him a call again. His name is Orestis. He plays in a band called Playgrounded, and he's also from Greece. So we now have that ties with Greece and France, So although we are from Scotland and from Edinburgh, I think we feel like sometimes quite European. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's cool. I think you mentioned earlier about the accents, kind of um, sort of embracing that a little bit more. So it's cool that you can have that maybe unique identity, and maybe that's a part of why. Um, but yeah, there seems to be some great bands coming out of Scotland at the moment, so it's cool. So I wanted to ask, my editor asked me, do you? It's kind of a joke question, really. Do you
That's fine.
time your album releases with the release of the June movies?
It's true that they've been coming out on the same year so
Yeah.
far, the last
Yeah.
two ones. Not at all, but I don't even know if it works in our favor or it makes no difference at all. It certainly makes for fun
Interesting.
conversations. But yeah, no, you're right. The last one, I think we released the album maybe 2 months or 3 months before the first one,
Oh,
and
okay.
this one really just happens a month after. So here you go. Let's say yes. Just tell him yes.
Is that catch wind? Yeah.
Yes. That's
That's
it. We're taking all opportunities we can get.
Oh, cool. Okay. Are you all in the band? Are you all fans of the June books, or is that just kind of yourself or whoever writes the lyrics? And obviously, I presume you're named after Frank Herbert's June. Is that right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yes, we are all fans. I think everybody has read it. We've all certainly watched also all the movies. No, we're huge fan. I think the reason why we chose the name is at the time we didn't really know what we wanted to sing about, and in fact we weren't sure we were going to be we were not going to be an instrumental band. For
Oh,
a while we considered that in our early days, but I remember Dan joined the band when we started writing, when we already had our first EP written and we didn't have any vocals on it. And personally, I never did vocals at the time, so I was like, I don't know what to do with this in terms of vocals. And he was like, I think I'd like to do heavy vocals on this and blah blah blah. And then we start thinking, all right, we want clean vocals. Nobody knew we could sing, this kind of thing. So we start. This happens as we start writing things, but because we were like considering what we wanted to sing about, it we clearly felt like the music told us that it's kind of a trip what we were doing, and we really like concept music, so we felt like science fiction, and even I like the term science fantasy, sci fantasy. I think it's a good much more much closer to what Dune is about, really, like the book.
yeah.
It's like, there's not much machines. It's more about them taking weird drugs and and being able to bend the space time with their mind. So there is this kind of a vibe that I really enjoy as well. A lot more mysterious, certainly, than classic more technologically based science fiction. So yeah, it worked for us, and I think there is another element to it which for me just felt at home as well. I love Middle Eastern and like Turkish and Balkan and Greek kind of sounding music. There is a really interesting kind of melodies and colors in these melodies, and like note choices, the type of scales that have been used. And I certainly think that it's kind of really proper to Dune as well, in the environment of, like, the desert, and even the Fremen. The Fremens feel really like Tuareg, or like, that kind of nomadic desert tribes. That's what they feel like in the book, and even in the movie. So for me, it just feels like even the music felt right within this kind of world, and then from that we just made our own stories, obviously. But yeah, Dune in general, the universe of Dune just feels like a nice homage to this universe that yeah, is very inspiring.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, I think you definitely hear that in terms of the scales you use and the riffs and things. So I've got to ask, is that a lyra you have behind you or something? Is it
Yeah, it's a lute. I'll get it out. I got it recently from my girlfriend is Greek, and her dad just offered that to me, and it's like a basically double string lute kind of thing, and it's awesome. It's very cool. To be honest, man, I used to have like an acoustic guitar, and I've sold it because I just play that. I've got it at home. I just end up playing it all the time. It's really cool, and it's got all these nice open tunings and stuff like that. So you're having quite a lot of fun. But my guitars are also I use double strings guitar, like a 12 strings, but it's like 9 strings thing. And I always really enjoyed them. I discovered them because of Mastodon and High on Fire. They had them. And the when I ordered one like 10 years ago, I've been playing them for 10 years now, and I only have that now because I just really like them. I like the way they play, the way they slide. But they certainly bring a lot of that kind of Middle Eastern and Balkan vibe to it. In fact, when I was with those Greek guys on tour, sometimes they take the piss out of it because it's just like that sounds like a lute, or like uh, so it certainly does. But I love it. I think it brings again its own colors and its own identity to the music.
Yeah, massively agree with that. That's really interesting. So just to wrap things up, I wanted to ask kind of what's next for the band. Have you guys started writing new music, or are you just concentrated on promoting and touring Voidkind? And also the album's out next week, is that right?
Yeah, next Friday.
Okay, cool. Yes, so
Yeah.
what's next for you guys then?
Well, exactly what you said. I think although we want to start writing not too late after that,
Mhm.
I think if we started writing now, we would do something we don't want to do, which is do
Oh,
a DLC. I know I keep on using DLC, but I think it's a perfect term for this.
analogy, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we don't want, again, we're gonna have to take a bit of time to, you know, reflect, think about, hey, what did we do on this album, and what's going to be next. Certainly, you know, there's a lot of head scratching here happening, because you've done something and you've done another thing before that. I don't want us to be that band that just go, you know, oh, we came back to our roots and we did this album that we did with it. You know, I'm just like, nah, man, that sounds a bit lame. I think we still have something underneath our under our sleeve, you know, but we're gonna have to think hard and to make it happen, and you know, to keep things interesting for the next record. So first touring, promoting this album, enjoying ourselves as well a little bit, because it's been, you know, very busy, and I want us to be able to enjoy yourself, and I think time is important. I think from time to time the music industry is made in such a way that you are like, here's an album, you go on tour, and then 2 years after that you release a new album, and I feel like it doesn't necessarily allow growth for a band, you know. I think it sometimes is just and yeah, I don't want to burn out as well. I think it's a good, it still is meant to be like an enjoyable process. We're playing music between friends, and we're creating music that means something to us. It needs to be that first, and then the things around it is just the added bonus.
Okay, great. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Okay, so Voidkind is out Friday the 19th,
Correct. Yes.
and you guys are on tour. Are you in tour in the UK as well soon?
Yeah. 23rd of April, we start with Newcastle, and we're doing 6 shows in the UK. We're going to be all over England, mostly England actually.
Yeah.
Actually, only England. Sorry, Scotland.
Okay.
But then, yeah, again, Conjurer just after that, and then a bit of UK, a couple of shows in the UK, and then big European 3-4 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I'm looking
Good.
forward to seeing you in Birmingham in a few weeks' time.
Oh, cool.
I'll be there. Yeah.
Nice one, nice one. Well, just yeah, don't be a stranger. Come at the merch desk if we are around. We'll have a chat for
Oh,
sure.
yeah, that would be cool.
Nice one.
All right. Okay. Well, so thanks very much, Victor, for joining us for an interview. I'm going to leave you to enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for having me. That was a nice chat. Thank you so much.
A lot of fun. Great to meet you. Okay. All right.